All right, hi friends, welcome to Workplace 20. I'm your host, Mrs. Clausen. I want to just go through this little lesson on review of basic shapes before we get into three-dimensional figures, which is actually what our outcome is. But just a quick review of these three basic shapes. So we have a rectangle, a triangle, and a circle. So if you remember, in a rectangle, the formula for area is length times width, or L times W. A triangle is a half the base times the height. I like to do it as base times height divided by 2. And you have to make sure that you know that the base has to be perpendicular to the height. Okay, that's important. And for a circle, the area is pi times the radius squared. You're only squaring the radius value, not the entire thing. And if you have the diameter, just a little tip, if you are given diameter, the radius is the diameter divided in half. Sometimes you have to do that, okay? So cut it in half. Now, if you don't know these formulas or you think you're not going to remember them, I want you to write these formulas onto your formula sheet. So you can draw yourself a little picture if you want, and then area is equal to length times width, right? But you need to make sure that you know what these formulas are. Just a quick reminder too that when we're finding area, always, 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 our units are going to be units squared. So centimeters squared, feet squared, meters squared, millimeters squared, whatever the case may be. So let's just practice using the formula. So I've got a circle. So my formula for the circle is pi times the radius squared. So I'm going to substitute in to my formula pi times 4 squared. So when I calculate that, it's going to be 4 squared times pi. Most of you, if you have a calculator that displays 2 screens, then you can just type it in exactly as it sits, pi bracket 4 bracket squared. Either way, you're going to get 50 point, remember we're going to do to the nearest tenth in this unit. Remember to use your rounding rule, so it's 50.26, which comes to 50.3. My units are going to be centimeters squared. Okay, the second example, I have a triangle. So the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So you just have to identify which number is which. In this case, remember that the base and the height are perpendicular to one another, meaning they create a 90-degree angle. So base times height. So my base is going to be 14. My height is going to be 5 divided by 2. And when I punch that into my calculator, I get 35. This doesn't explicitly say whether it's centimeters, feet, meters, whatever, so I just use the word units squared. All right. So at some times throughout this chapter, it's often that we may have to find a side length on a right angled triangle. Okay, so just a reminder that we have the Pythagorean theorem, which is stated as c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared if I want to find the hypotenuse. So remember the hypotenuse is c, a and b, it doesn't matter which is which. If you are given the hypotenuse and you want to find a leg, you hopefully have seen this variation of it. You have to subtract the hypotenuse squared, take away the other side squared. So I'll show you a couple of examples of using that right now, okay? So what you have to do when you have this is identify whether you have the hypotenuse or not. So I always like to label that first. So this is the hypotenuse. So I do not have the hypotenuse, so I'm going to use c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. And it doesn't matter which of the two legs are a and b, but the hypotenuse does matter. So that one's got to be a c. So I've got 6 squared plus 8 squared. So 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64. When I add those together, I get 100. Now remember at the end here, you need to square root. So you end up with 10 is the length of my hypotenuse. In this one, the hypotenuse is here. Just don't get messed up, but it's that one. So I'm given the hypotenuse. So in this one, I want to use the variation of the formula that says my leg is equal to my hypotenuse squared, take away my other leg squared. So my unknown leg in this example will be y squared equals 13 squared minus 12 squared. So 169 minus 144 gives me 25. So when I square root that, I end up with 5. Okay, now both of these examples worked out to be nice numbers. It doesn't always end up that way. Sometimes, lots of times actually, you get a decimal number as an answer, and that's okay. Decimals are numbers too. but that will hopefully help you remember how to use the Pythagorean theorem. So there are some practice questions for you to do, finding area, calculating the Pythagorean theorem. So I want you to go ahead and do that now.